California. California is the beautiful, sun-drenched tomb of the American dream. For generations, this was the place you went to make it. Hollywood, Silicon Valley, endless sunshine. It was the embodiment of opportunity. But that dream has become a nightmare of spreadsheets and impossible math. The single biggest reason people are leaving in droves comes down to one thing: the cost of a roof over your head. We're talking about a median home price that feels like a typo, a number so astronomically high that it's pushed the dream of ownership out of reach for millions. You could work a great job, a six-figure job, and still find yourself struggling to afford a modest home in a decent neighborhood. But it's not just the housing. It's a relentless financial squeeze from every direction. You're paying some of the highest state income taxes in the entire country. You're paying the highest gas prices. It feels like every time you turn around, there's another fee, another tax, another cost that just chips away at your paycheck until there's little left to actually live on. People aren't just leaving, they're fleeing. They're packing up moving vans and heading for states like Texas, Arizona, and Nevada, not necessarily because they want to, but because they have to. They're chasing affordability. They're chasing the dream that California itself promised them, but can no longer deliver. It's a heartbreaking exodus from a place that so many people love. They are leaving the beaches, the mountains, and the culture behind, because the Golden State has simply become too expensive to survive in, let alone thrive. It's a profound failure of a promise. We will see this theme of the dream becoming a nightmare again, but for a wildly different reason, in the one state that represents America's last true frontier. New York. The Empire State is where dreams are supposed to be made, but for a growing number of people, it's a place they can't wait to leave behind. For so long, the magnetic pull of New York City was undeniable. The energy, the ambition, the feeling that you were at the center of the universe. But the very things that made it so attractive are now driving people away. The sheer cost of living has become a caricature of itself. We're talking about paying thousands of dollars a month for an apartment so small you can barely turn around in it. It's a place where a simple bag of groceries can feel like a luxury purchase. The pandemic threw gasoline on a fire that was already burning. Suddenly, the high-density living, the crowded subways, and the relentless pace didn't feel exciting anymore. They felt like a liability. For the first time, hundreds of thousands of people realized that if they could work from anywhere, why would they choose to work from the most expensive, most crowded place in the country? So they left. They flocked to Florida, to the Carolinas, to places where they could get more space, more quiet, and a tax bill that didn't make their eyes water. New York's tax burden is legendary, a constant weight on both individuals and businesses. This isn't just a story about New York City either. The high costs and taxes ripple across the state, pushing out families and retirees who are simply looking for a more sustainable way of life. And just like New York, the story of our next state is intrinsically tied to the fate of its one massive, world-famous city, Illinois. Illinois is a state that's bleeding people, and it's not hard to see why. The story here is a familiar one, but with a particularly sharp edge. It's a tale of crushing taxes and a deep, abiding lack of faith in the state's leadership. For years, Illinois has been locked in a downward spiral. It has one of the highest overall tax burdens in the nation. We're talking about property taxes so high, they can double a mortgage payment, making home ownership a constant financial battle. And it's not just one tax. It's a feeling of being nickel and dimed at every turn. This financial pressure is happening against a backdrop of decades of political instability and mismanagement that has left many residents feeling cynical and abandoned. They see their tax dollars pouring into a system that they feel gives them little in return. Chicago is the state's economic engine, but it's facing its own set of challenges that cause many to look for the exits. People are looking for stability. They're looking for a place where they feel their money is being well spent, or at least a place where they get to keep more of it. They're heading to neighboring states like Indiana and Wisconsin, or heading south to warmer, lower tax states. It's a slow, steady exodus that is hollowing out communities across the state. It's a powerful reminder that when people lose faith in the system, they don't just vote with their ballots, they vote with their feet. And if you want to cast your ballot for more stories like this one, go ahead and click subscribe. New Jersey. New Jersey's problem is one of geography and arithmetic. It is quite literally squeezed between two of the most expensive and powerful economic hubs in the world, New York City and Philadelphia. For generations, that was its greatest strength. It offered the promise of a quiet, suburban life with a nice backyard, all within commuting distance of a great job. But that promise has become an incredibly expensive fantasy. The Garden State is now home to the highest property taxes in the entire United States, period. That isn't just a statistic. It's a relentless financial pressure that shapes every decision a family makes. It means the dream of a little slice of suburbia comes with a bill so massive, it forces people to question if it's worth it. And then there's the daily grind. The congestion is suffocating. The highways are legendary for their traffic, turning what should be a simple commute into a soul-crushing multi-hour ordeal. You're paying a premium to live in a state where you spend a huge chunk of your life just sitting in a car. So people are making a choice. They are cashing out, selling homes they can no longer afford the taxes on, and moving to places like Pennsylvania or down the coast to the Carolinas. They are seeking relief not just from the financial pressure, but from the sheer density and stress of it all. It makes you wonder, at what point does the price of admission to a good life become simply too high to pay? Massachusetts. Massachusetts presents a fascinating paradox. This is a state that, on paper, has it all. It's a global powerhouse of education, with universities like Harvard and MIT. It's a leader in healthcare and technology. The job opportunities are incredible, the history is rich, and the quality of life is, by many measures, very high. So why are people leaving? Because Massachusetts has become a victim of its own success. The very forces that make it so desirable have created an economic pressure cooker that is forcing people out. The cost of living is simply staggering. Housing is the biggest piece of the puzzle. The demand to live in the greater Boston area, fueled by the booming tech and biotech industries, has sent real estate prices into the stratosphere. It's created a situation where even people with good, high-paying jobs in those very industries are struggling to find an affordable place to live. The people who make the state run, the teachers, the nurses, the first responders, are being completely priced out of the communities they serve. Beyond the housing, the state carries a heavy tax burden and a reputation for being an expensive place to do just about anything. People are being forced into an impossible choice. Leave the state you love for a place you can actually afford, or stay and struggle. Many are choosing to leave, heading for the more affordable pastures of New Hampshire, or chasing the sun and lower costs in southern states. So far, we've seen how money and taxes can drive people away. But what happens when the reasons are far more complicated and the very ground beneath your feet feels like it's working against you? Maryland. For so many people in Maryland, life is defined by one single overwhelming reality: the gravitational pull of Washington, D.C. The state has become, for many, a massive bedroom community for the nation's capital, and that has created a unique set of pressures that are driving people away. It's called the commuter's burden, and it's a daily grind of time, money, and stress. The traffic on the highways circling DC is among the worst in the entire country. It's a daily battle that steals hours from your life, hours you could be spending with your family or doing things you love. That commute also comes at a steep price. The cost of living in the counties closest to DC is incredibly high, driven by the demand from those working high-powered federal and contracting jobs. But if you move further out to find more affordable housing, your commute gets even longer and more expensive. It's a classic catch-22. On top of that, Maryland is a high-tax state. That combination of a high cost of living, high taxes, and a brutal daily commute creates a quality of life that many people are no longer willing to accept. They are looking for an escape hatch. They're moving south to Virginia or the Carolinas, or west to more affordable states, all in search of a life that is less defined by traffic and more defined by personal freedom and time. But traffic and taxes are one thing. What if the biggest threat to your home wasn't the economy, but Mother Nature herself? Louisiana. Leaving Louisiana is often not a choice. It's an act of survival. This is a story that goes far beyond taxes and housing costs. It's a story of a state locked in a relentless battle with Mother Nature, and it's a battle that many are starting to feel they are losing. The shadow of Hurricane Katrina still looms large, but it was just one chapter in an ongoing saga of devastating storms, floods, and coastal erosion that is literally washing parts of the state away. For residents, especially in the southern parishes, life is lived with a constant sense of anxiety. They aren't wondering the cost of that reality is immense. Insurance rates have become astronomical, if you can even get coverage at all. The cycle of rebuilding, only to be threatened again, is emotionally and financially draining. But this environmental crisis is happening on top of long-standing economic challenges. Louisiana has struggled with a lack of high-paying job opportunities outside of the oil and gas industry, an industry that is itself volatile. The state has also faced challenges in its education and healthcare systems. When you combine limited economic prospects with the very real existential threat of your home being destroyed by a natural disaster, the decision to leave becomes a matter of logic. People truly love the state's unique and vibrant culture. They're leaving because they need safety, stability, and economic opportunity for their families. It's a heartbreaking migration, fueled by the powerful 1-2 punch of economic hardship and climate change. This fight for survival in a changing world connects back to a quieter, but no less profound struggle happening in the heart of America's old industrial core. Pennsylvania. The exodus from Pennsylvania is a different kind of story. It's not a dramatic flood of people fleeing a sudden crisis, but a slow, quiet, and steady departure that speaks to a deeper economic shift. For over a century, Pennsylvania was the heart of American industry. Steel mills, coal mines, and factories were the lifeblood of the state, providing stable, good-paying jobs for generations. But as that industrial base has faded, the state has struggled to replace those jobs with new opportunities at the same scale. The result is a job market that feels stagnant to many, especially young people. Younger generations and recent college graduates are leaving for cities and states with more dynamic and diverse economies, like those in the Sun Belt or on the West Coast. They are chasing the promise of innovation and upward mobility that they feel is lacking at home. At the same time, the state has one of the oldest populations in the country. As older residents retire, many are choosing to become snowbirds, moving to warmer climates with lower taxes, like Florida or the Carolinas, taking their retirement savings with them. This creates a double whammy. The next generation is leaving for opportunity, and the older generation is leaving for a more affordable retirement. It's a quiet hollowing out that is posing a major challenge for the future of the Keystone State. But if a state with a struggling economy is losing people, you'd expect a state with one of the most explosive, futuristic economies in the world to be gaining them, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Washington. Washington State is the most shocking and unexpected story on this list. For years, it was the destination. It was the home of tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon, a place of stunning natural beauty, progressive ideals, and boundless economic opportunity. It was the state people flocked to. But now, for the first time in a long time, more people are leaving than are coming. And the reason is deeply ironic. Washington has become a victim of its own incredible success. The meteoric rise of the tech industry, centered in the Seattle area, created an economic boom that was the envy of the world. It generated tens of thousands of high-paying jobs and attracted brilliant minds from all over the globe. But that boom had a side effect. It unleashed a tidal wave of money that completely warped the housing market, creating one of the most severe affordability crises in the country. Home prices and rents skyrocketed to levels that are simply unattainable for anyone outside of the tech bubble. Longtime residents, teachers, artists, and service workers found themselves priced out of the city they had called home for their entire lives. The problem has since spread across the state, as the wealth from Seattle pushes housing costs up in surrounding areas. This has been compounded by growing frustration over issues like traffic congestion and a rising sense of homelessness and public safety concerns in urban centers. It's not that there's a lack of opportunity here. The problem is that the opportunity came at a cost that broke the social contract for everyone else. It proves that a booming economy doesn't always lift all boats. Sometimes it sinks them. Alaska. And now we come to the final, most fascinating chapter in this story of the Great American Migration. Alaska. This isn't a story about taxes or traffic or a housing crisis in the traditional sense. This is a story about the dream of the final frontier colliding with a very harsh reality. For decades, Alaska represented the ultimate escape. It was a place for rugged individuals, for people who wanted to live a life of adventure, unbound by the rules of the lower 48. People moved there to find something raw and real and wild. But living in that wildness comes at a cost that goes beyond money. The biggest factor driving people out is a profound sense of isolation. Alaska is huge and sparsely populated. It's a long, expensive plane ride away from family and friends. For many, that isolation eventually becomes a crushing weight. The job market is another major issue. It's heavily reliant on a few key industries, like oil, gas, and fishing, which can be incredibly volatile. When oil prices drop, the entire state's economy suffers. Stable jobs can be hard to find, and the cost of living is surprisingly high, since almost everything has to be shipped in from thousands of miles away. And then there's the sheer challenge of the lifestyle itself. The long, dark winters, the extreme cold, the ever-present dangers of living in a truly wild place. It takes a specific kind of resilience that not everyone has. People are leaving Alaska because the romantic dream of living on the edge is being replaced by a practical desire for connection, stability, and comfort. Perhaps the Great American Migration isn't just about finding a new place to live, but about redefining what the dream itself even looks like.